Round 2 of Asian World Cup qualifying is over, folks. We're moving on to round 3, the real business end of the qualifiers. And man, we have a lot to talk about in this video. There's a lot of winners, there's a lot of losers, and I have a ton of notes to get to. Before I give you all my thoughts on every single game, every single team, and pretty much every single thing happening within Asian football, I have a couple favors to ask. Number one, I would really appreciate if you guys smashed the like button. These videos take a really long time to prepare for. There are so many teams in Asia. There were so many groups. There was so much footy to watch. So a like would go a long way. And second, if you guys can hit subscribe if you like videos covering Asian football. I like to think that here on Deadball TV, this is probably the best place for you to be. On YouTube, I am planning a ton of content for round 3, maybe even some more videos about round 2. I know next up we have the round 3 draw, I believe on June 27th. That will be a video here on the channel. So if you want to see that and all the other Asian stuff, make sure you hit subscribe. Because we have so much to talk about in so little time, I'm going to try to do this with as minimal editing as possible, as few cuts as possible. If I can do this in one take, I mean, I might just be the real deal. Let's go ahead and start with Group A, which in my opinion had the most drama of all of the other groups. You could make an argument for Group C because of what happened with China and Thailand, but me personally, I think I'd go with Group A just because during match day 6 at the end there was moments where Kuwait was through, India was through. I don't know if Afghanistan was ever going through, but there was this flip-flopping for a minute there, and it was really, really exciting, despite the overall talent in Group A being pretty terrible. I mean, the fact that Kuwait ends up being the second team to make it out of this group and go to round 3 really says it all. And I challenge somebody in the comments right now to tell me a weaker team that advanced to round 3 of Asian World Cup qualifying than Kuwait. Because if you ask me, I think Kuwait is hands down the weakest side. Hands down. I'm really trying to think of somebody else. Even Palestine, I think, is clear. If we're talking North Korea, I think they're clear of Kuwait. I mean, these boys, if they pick up a single win in the next phase, that's a massive dub. Massive dub for Kuwait. Kuwait was able to survive Sunil Chetri's final game with the Indian national team in India before coming home to Kuwait City and I believe getting their first win of the qualifying window at home, which is kind of sad, but nonetheless, they got the job done, and congratulations to them. It was a pretty convincing win for Kuwait. I was a little disappointed in how Afghanistan approached the game because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure no matter what, Afghanistan needed a win to leapfrog into second place because of their horrendous goal differential, and it just never really looked like they went for it. Now, I've already talked about Kuwait. I feel like Afghanistan, the story of Afghanistan is what if? Right? What if many of their first team players did not decide to boycott the federation? What if they actually got to field the A team in these matches? Based on how these games played out, based on the fact that they were 2 points away from qualification and the two teams that were on top of them are India and Kuwait, I'm actually quite bullish that the Afghans could have made it to round 3 if they fielded their strongest team. But you know what? That didn't happen, and they end up finishing 4th. And maybe given the circumstances, maybe that's not that bad, but I feel like the Afghans will be feeling like this was really an opportunity that got away. And you want to talk about opportunities that got away? We have to talk about India for a second. I mean, look, I know that the talk of the next 30 years on the Indian subcontinent is going to be about that first goal conceded to Qatar. Was it out? It looked out to me, but then again, I haven't seen an angle where it was 100% certifiably out. But you know what? I will empathize with my Indian supporters out there, and I will say that was very harsh. The ball was probably out. Okay? Now, let's be honest with ourselves. India are not eliminated in round 2 of World Cup qualifying because of that goal against Qatar. No. India are not going to round 3 because India had nothing short of an embarrassing campaign thus far. I mean, if you look at what happened with India here, you had the dream start, right? You beat Kuwait in Kuwait City, a result that surprised me. And I saw that and I said, okay, India, just based on the strength of the rest of the group and the fact that their most difficult fixture outside of Doha was a W, they should pull this out. They should pull this out. And what did they do? They gave me 1 point. They gave me 1 point from 2 matches against an Afghan side who had literally never played together and were probably semi-professional footballers. And they beat the Indian national team in a World Cup qualifier. I mean, it's shambolic. I really, of all the teams that got hard done by, right? And there's quite a few, and we're gonna get to all of them in this video. Just stay with me. This is gonna be a beast, all right? I think I had the least amount of sympathy for India because the destiny of the Indian national team was in their hands the entire time up until the final whistle. You should have gotten it done against Afghanistan. One win in that fixture, and they might be through, folks. They might be through. But let's say that they still take 1 point against Afghanistan in those 2 games, right? You're going into the final match day where you have a home game against Kuwait, a very beatable opponent. And you have an away game in Doha, but you don't even have to play the Qatari starters. You get to play the Qatar U23 squad, right? And you walk away from this window with another singular point. I mean, that is pathetic. Guys, it's pathetic. I mean, and I think it's even more pathetic that this was Chetri's send-off game in that Kuwait home fixture. And even with that Chetri send-off buff, y'all couldn't get it done. Y'all couldn't get it done. It is abysmal for India. I'm looking at the stats here. 1 win for India in the last 15 games during regular time. That's not good enough. You want to make it to round 3 of Asian World Cup qualifying? Or, goddamn, you want to make it to a World Cup? And you giving me 1 win in 15? No. No, football doesn't owe you anything. Football does not owe you anything. And I have zero sympathy for India's situation here because they should have drawn Qatar, and they should have beat Kuwait. They should have gotten at least 1 dub against Afghanistan, and they shouldn't have lost either game against the Afghans. And here we are with India in 3rd place with 1 win from 5 winnable fixtures. It's simply not enough. Now, to conclude Group A with Qatar, I have to say I was very impressed with the defensive work of their U23 squad. I thought against India, especially late, the amount of last effort slide tackles that blocked a shot or blocked a cross, I thought it was spectacular. Now, I didn't get to watch the 0-0 draw against Afghanistan in the first leg, but my predictions for this group were pretty inaccurate because I didn't know that Afghanistan, I never know what's going on with their squad, and I had no idea that Qatar was going to bring the youngins out for this one. So, given that, though, I was still correct with Kuwait going through as the second team, and I think both Qatar and Kuwait in round 3, I mean, Godspeed to both of them, because if these teams do not get extremely favorable draws, I think both of them I think they could be in for a rough time in round 3. So those are my thoughts on Group A. Let's move it on to Group B, where Japan absolutely dog-walked this group. 24 goals scored, 0 allowed, beat Myanmar and Syria 5-0 each. In this window, I'm very disappointed in Syria, and I will get to Syria in a second. But they finished with the most goals in round 2 of any team. Japan, I don't think that's that surprising. What is surprising, and drop a like on the video for these stats, is that Australia had the 2nd most goals scored with 22. I mean, shout out to the Australians. We're going to get to them at the very end. We got a long way to go. What I want to highlight for Japan is some of their top performers, namely Keito Nakamura, who had 2 goals and 1 assist in this window, and he is now up to 8 goals and 1 assist in 10 games for the Samurai Blue, which that is an insane clip. I mean, that's like top 5 all-time pace, and which is crazy because I don't think Nakamura, I love Nakamura as a player, but I don't even know what his ceiling is compared to a player like Junya Ito, for example. Like I feel like Junya Ito in his prime right now, like, what a player. I think Nakamura, if he gets to Ito level, I think both he and Japan are going to be in a really good place going forward. But just to put that 9 goal involvements in 10 games into perspective, another Japanese player, one that is much, much better known due to his performances at singular World Cup games, Ritsu Doan, has 10 goals in 50 games for Japan. So he's played 5x the games as Nakamura, and he's got 2 more goals. If that doesn't prove that Doan is a bit overrated, I really don't know what else to tell y'all, folks. Japan, pretty much very experimental with the lineup here. There was a reintroduction of several players who we haven't seen in a long time, like Koki Ogawa, who hasn't played since 2019. My man came in, got a brace against Myanmar. Now, it's Myanmar, but hey, can we get 2 claps in the chat for Ogawa? And Daichi Kamada makes his return after missing the Asian Cup. And I wonder in hindsight if anybody regrets leaving that man out of the squad. I know that the season at Lazio was a disaster, but I'm not sure how much of that was Kamada's fault and how much of that was Sarri's fault. But hey, he just signed to Crystal Palace. He's back under Glasner. Will Kamada cook? Let me know down below in the comments. Anything else I want to say about Japan? Yeah, I feel like round 2, this was very easy for them, especially defensively. Like, we've learned nothing about Japan. We only learn things about Japan when they play, like, top 25 opposition in the world or knockout games at the Asian Cup. That's the only time when I feel like we can draw some strong takeaways from the Samurai Blue side. Like, simply put, North Korea, Syria, Myanmar, you could combine their attacks together and give them steroids, Vietnamese coffee, and some other testosterone booster, and I still don't think they would make the Japanese backline sweat that much. Now, if Japan get Iraq or a Jordan or something like that in the group stage, now we have a conversation, because now Japan are going up against legitimate adversaries. That was not the case in round 2. Now, a team that I try to tell y'all is tough as nails, and I try to tell y'all was going to advance to round 2 is North Korea. They got a very clutch 1-0 win against Syria. Il Guanhong, the hat trick here against Myanmar, scores a 92nd minute winner here against Syria. It was ugly. It was unconvincing. Guess who doesn't give a you-know-what? The North Koreans, who are through to round 3. Now, I don't expect much of these guys in round 3 other than, I guarantee you, they're going to get one surprise win. I don't know who it's against. They're going to get one surprise win that everybody's like, damn, I didn't know North Korea had it like that. Although if you watch Deadball TV, you should know that they have it like that. And maybe 1 or 2 like admirable draws, right? I mean, if you look at the defense of this team, on paper, what the record books will show is they conceded 7 goals in 6 games. But let's not forget, the match that was supposed to be in Pyongyang was a 3-0 forfeit because North Korea were unable to host the match. So if you remove that 3-0 forfeit, North Korea conceded 4 goals in 5 games in this group. I mean, that is impressive. You have to bow your head a little bit to that North Korean defensive record. Let's not forget that in Japan, they lost 1-0. And yes, Japan should have scored more goals, courtesy of Ritsu Doan and co. But at the end of the day, it was a 1-0 defeat. And I think North Korea are going to have similar performances to that 1-0 defeat against Japan when they play better teams in round 3. Now, are they going to get results like beating Myanmar 4-1, which they did in the final match day? No, I don't think so. I'd be shocked if they score 4 in a single game in round 3. But I'm just saying, look for North Korea to play more of the spoiler as opposed to a team that has a legitimate hope of advancing to the World Cup. They will not make the World Cup, but they could play party pooper for some other, possible hopeful debutante in the Asian continent. I'm just saying, watch out. Now, the opposite of hope is probably the Syrian national team, who I think if you look at teams that have taken a step back since 2022 qualifying cycle, let me know in the comments, but I feel like Syria and Lebanon, hands down, are the most down bad from that cycle to this one. Actually, hold on. It's Vietnam. It is Vietnam. But those 3 teams, I feel like, have really regressed from the last World Cup qualifying cycle. I mean, if you look at how Syria performed in round 2 in 2022, I know the group wasn't super strong, but they won 7 of 8 games. 7 of 8 games. Fast forward to 2026 World Cup qualifying cycle, and you're drawing Myanmar 1-1, losing to North Korea, a team that has barely played since the pandemic. They've been playing like Chinese club and university teams just to stay fit, and you eat 10 goals in 2 matches against Japan. Like, Syria, man, just overall, massive loser. Massive loser, because all they needed was a draw against North Korea, and they were pretty much through. And they couldn't do that. They concede late, and they lose the game. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little surprised, or I would be a little surprised, I should say, if Hector Cooper sticks around as manager. I feel like he's already failed. I know they made the knockouts at the Asian Cup, and oh my God, wow, they played such hard defense, but this team needs to be better than this. I really think they're in big trouble, and I think they're trending downwards, and I think a managerial change might be the only way out. And a team that has, what is the way out? I mean, you know the movie Get Out? That is literally the Myanmar national team. I mean, 28 goals conceded, bro, in 6 games. How is that even possible? I can understand if Japan beats you 10-0 on Ag. I can understand that. But you're letting Syria score 7? Syria, bro. They don't have any shooters. They're on the national team anyways. I mean, in North Korea, you're going to eat 4. Like, it's just, they're so bad. I don't even know what a takeaway is here. I think the biggest positive for Myanmar is that they got a draw against Syria. I think that says more about Syria. And they scored 3 goals. You know, on the last match day, even though they got bodied 4-1 by North Korea, they got a goal. They scored 3. Okay, that's more than some of the other Pot 4 teams can say here, but even when we talk about being relegated to Asian Cup qualifying, the future of Myanmar, it is bleak. It is bleak. I was going to make a very offensive joke about the state of the country and asking which one was more bleak, but I feel like that's inappropriate. Although it's now already been alluded to, and no doubt the haters will clip this and post it on the Twitter. So I have sealed my fate, much like Myanmar and Syria have done the same. Moving on to Group C. I'm asking myself how I want to start the dialogue with Group C, and I feel like I have to go to Thailand, because I feel like Thailand might be one of the biggest losers, if not the biggest loser from round 2, because when you look at how they played against China in both games, when they lost 2-1 at home under Polking, and when they just recently drew 1-1 away in China, they were by far the better team in both games, and they walk away with 1 point. I feel for Thailand here, but same with India, man. If I'm going to be harsh with India, if I'm going to be harsh with Syria, I have to be harsh with Thailand. Like, the future was there. All you needed to do was beat Singapore, a team that you've beaten 7 or 8 games in a row by 3 goals at home. And you should have. I mean, looking back at that game, ultimately beating Singapore 3-1, Singapore should have had a couple, okay? And if we want to have a little side tangent about Singapore, I feel like I personally owe an apology to Iksan Fandi, their striker, because I actually think this brother's the truth. I think this brother's the truth. And I want you guys in the comments to let me know, is he the best striker in Southeast Asia? Because if it's not him, it's Supachai. But it's one of those, gentlemen. Like, it's not Stroik from Indonesia. Sit down. It's not. But both of these guys are clear of Stroik. And the fact that this guy's banging in goals left and right for the Singapore side, like, I just wonder if you put Fandi on, like, Tajikistan, for example, we'll get to them later, a team that is begging for a striker, like pleading to God. They're making like goat and alpaca. Oh, they don't have alpacas there. I'm sure they have some sort of what kind of steppe animals do they have? Oxen? Do they have buffalo? I don't know. I'm exposing my understanding of animals in Central Asia. The point is they really need a 9, and I think Fandi is that guy. And the fact that he's playing for a Singapore side that is always on the back foot, they're always the underdog, and he's 7th all-time already in their top goal-scoring list at 25 years old. And I wouldn't be surprised if he catches it when it's all said and done. I just feel like I need to say that. I feel like I need to say something positive about Singapore. And they fought. They fought against Thailand, but I'm telling y'all, this back line that ate 7 in the first game against South Korea, it's just terrible. I mean, even Thailand, bro. And I'm disappointed in Supachai. He needed to get a goal in this game, especially against the Singapore back line. And I feel like they bailed him out. They bailed him out with some bad finishing from Thailand. Time and time again, they allowed the game to get closed. Fandi has a shot that goes off the post. I believe it would have made it 2-1 Singapore at that point. So again, it's hard to be very sympathetic to Thailand because they should have gotten the job done. You needed to beat China. And if you didn't, God was giving you a second chance. And all you needed to do was beat Singapore by 3. And they failed to do that. They beat Singapore by 2. Although, you got to give credit to China and their defensive performance against Korea in the second game, only losing 1-0 despite conceding 82% possession. I thought they did a really good job at neutralizing Lee Gang-in and Sung Kyo-min. And basically, the game plan was clearly, okay, force Korea to take shots outside the box. If they score that way, we'll live with it. They knew what time it was. China knew that they had the tiebreaker in points against Thailand because they beat them in the first match 2-1. So they knew that they just had to hold the goal differential and they were through. And you know what? They did it. They did it. And this is yet another example of a very strong Chinese defensive performance that we've seen recently, now under Branko Ivankovic, a new manager. And so I feel like China, the positive takeaways is, as ugly as it was, as downright awful as this team is going forward most of the time, they still made it to round 3. They're still alive. Now, will they do anything? I feel like every team and they mama wants China in round 3. Like, they want all the smoke. They want all the smoke. But you know what? I got to admit, that new Chinese national team kit, they're pretty nice. They're pretty nice. It looks a little royal, and I think like the shade of red and the black on the home kit, it does make China look like the bad guys again. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like Asian football needs that. I feel like they got to lean into that. As much as I loved the turquoise away earlier, it just it was a bit too Korean for me. It was a bit too Korean. I feel like now China's back on brand. Is that going to help in round 3? Absolutely not. But even as they lose, they're going to look great doing it. Do I have any other takeaways for China? No, I don't. I'll go on to South Korea now, beating Singapore 7-0, and then China 1-0 at home. Fun fact, the last time South Korea scored 7 goals was 2019 against Sri Lanka. Yes, so anytime you're next to Sri Lanka in the record books, probably not a good thing. Now, what I want to highlight specifically with South Korea is the performance of their best players, Lee Gang-in and Sung Kyo-min. And the numbers that these guys put up in round 2 is ridiculous. I mean, Lee Gang-in ends round 2 with 4 goals and 3 assists. He had a goal involvement in 5 of the 6 games. Sung Kyo-min also had goal involvements in 5 of the 6 games and walks away with 7 goals and 1 assist. That's 11 goals, 4 assists in 6 games from, I'm going to say it again, Asia's Shaq and Kobe. There is no other attacking duo like Lee Gang-in and Sung Kyo-min. Now, if we're talking attacks overall, there is one that is better than South Korea. I actually feel like there's several. But I think the one to beat right now in Asia is the Jordanians, and we'll get to them when we get to their group, because what a window from Jordan. I mean, look out for those boys. Good Lord. But I think the brilliance of Lee Gang-in and Sung Kyo-min is also a weakness of this team. And I want any South Koreans watching this to let me know in the comments, how do you feel about going into round 3? Because this is kind of crazy, and I hope I'm not reaching here or being disrespectful, because South Korea scored 20 goals and they conceded 1, for God's sake. Like, let's not act for a second like they struggled, okay? Or it's like, oh, I don't know about South Korea. Like, if you're talking about how the Koreans look versus how the Saudis look going into round 3, oh yeah, the Koreans are in better form. I mean, hell, North Korea is in better form than Saudi Arabia. Like, those guys are absolute frauds. But I wonder if the fact that we still don't know what's going on with the manager, right? And the fact that they're so reliant on 2 players to score the goals, I wonder if that makes any South Korean fans uneasy. Because it makes me a little bit uneasy. Like, I have to be real. I'm looking at this team and I'm like, when the hell is somebody else going to score? Like, when is Lee Jae-sung going to have a game? When is Hwang Hee-chan going to have a... When are we going to see Wolves Hwang Hee-chan? When are we going to see that guy? I'm still waiting, bro. I know you got a goal against Portugal, the World Cup. Congratulations. That was in 2022, bro. That was 2 years ago. I need to see something, man. Choge-sung, bro. What did he get? 12 goals in the Danish league in his first season? 14 goals? Where is that for the national team? Don't make us bring Hwang Hee-jo back. Like somebody else needs to start doing something. I'm serious. I feel like we saw it at the Asian Cup. They become predictable. They become a team where the opposition knows, okay, if we double these 2 guys, South Korea probably not going to score. We can probably beat them. Or it's like in basketball. You're going to guard Luka Doncic and you're going to guard Kyrie. You're going to double them because you can live with the other 3 guys taking shots because they shooting 25% from 3. So you'll live with that. You just need to neutralize the stars and you watch the rest of the team falter. That's kind of what I see with South Korea. Like, I'm not foreseeing major struggles in round 3, but if they cruise through round 3, I would be surprised. Like, if they catch Jordan again in the group, or God forbid, like, Iraq, I mean, I'm just saying. Look, I'm theory crafting here. Let's move on to Group D. Now, this group, in the end, points-wise, was pretty hotly contested. And fun fact, Malaysia, the team that ends up finishing 3rd, is the only 3rd-place team of all of the groups with double-digit points accrued. They finished with 10, 1 point behind Kyrgyzstan with 11, and Oman ended up winning the group with 13. And then you got Chinese Taipei, who are just happy to go home at this point. I'm going to start with Malaysia. They did finish 3rd in this phase, just like they finished 3rd in 2022. And I know the circumstances for this team are difficult. And honestly, of some of the teams that I feel like disappointed, I do have a lot of sympathy for the Malaysians. I mean, no Faisal Halim. I've already talked about the acid attack. I don't want to go into that again. Horrible thing. I pray that he comes back and is the same footballer that he was, because his country needs him, and Asian football needs a guy like him to showcase the game and to showcase the talent that exists in this region, to put respect on Southeast Asian footy. So I hope for the best with that guy. And also no Arif Aiman either this window. Like, this was a big, big ask because Malaysia are a team that defensively are quite poor and they need to be offensively efficient. And to do that, they need to create a lot of chances. And a lot of those chances typically have been coming from Aiman and Halim. And I know that Rashid had actually a pretty good window. I think he only got 1 goal, but, that's pretty good depth at the right wing position. He was the starter for Malaysia before Aiman took a spot. So there is some coverage there, but still, man, this team doesn't have a 9 in the midfield. I think Stuart Wilkin, I think he's okay, but I think the rest of this midfield is pretty deadwood. There's no creator here, really. And the defense, I mean, look at the goal that Chinese Taipei scored. It's a simple through ball against a Malaysian high line, which they tend to play a high line for some reason, and it's an easy finish. And until they fix some of these problems, I just feel like Malaysia, they're gonna be stuck. Right now, I would firmly put them as a 2nd-tier Southeast Asian team, like Thailand and Indonesia. Those are the best teams in Southeast Asia. Malaysia, they're not in the conversation anymore. Vietnam, hell no, they're not in the conversation anymore. And any Malaysians watching, because I do know we have some Malaysian support on Deadball TV. Shout out to you guys. This has to be a failure, right? I know the circumstances are harsh, but this has to be a failure, right? Surely you guys, surely even some Asian footy fan neutrals, myself included, and Kim Pangong, the manager, looked at this group and said, okay, this is going to be hard, but we can make it to round 3. Surely round 3 was the goal, and they didn't hit it. And, they didn't do worse than they did in round 2 in 2022, but they didn't go forward. So now they're stagnant, which is almost just as bad, because that's when things can get really ugly by just remaining the same while the other teams around you go up and down. It's very easy for that to turn into a long purgatory. I'm a Mexican national team fan. Trust me on that. And I think one stat that I need to end the Malaysian segment on that just shows exactly how poor they were offensively is that their top goal scorer in round 2 was Dion Cools, the center back, who got both of his goals in the 4-3 win against Kyrgyzstan in Kuala Lumpur in match day 2. That's their top goal scorer, the center back. And Dion Cools, he's a cool cat. He's a good player, but surely you cannot have your center back being your top goal scorer, especially not if you're Malaysia. I am impressed that they got the draw in Kyrgyzstan, but I think that says a lot about Kyrgyzstan. And that's the next team we'll go into. They are going to be debutants in round 3 of World Cup qualifying. So congratulations to Kyrgyzstan. Me personally, I'm a bit frustrated with this team because every time I watch Kyrgyzstan, I feel like they could be giving more. I feel like they could be playing a similar style of football to Tajikistan. And they just don't. Like, these guys, they seem to have a strange mentality. I didn't like going into the Asian Cup that their manager was basically like, look, this is practice. I know that's not like word for word what he said, but he was saying like this team needs more reps, they're not ready, blah blah blah. I don't like when any manager says that. I don't like when that is the tone that is set by the gaffer going into an international tournament like the Asian Cup, especially if you're Kyrgyzstan. Like, he should have come out and been like, no, we're trying to make the quarterfinals. That's our objective, And I wonder if that's kind of oozed into this team, because I watched the game against Malaysia at home. Snooze fest. Absolute snooze fest. I thought it was going to be a banger fest. It was not. I thought it was going to be 3-2. Kyrgyzstan walks out of there, pretty much same game that we saw in Kuala Lumpur. Not at all. It was very pragmatic. They clearly knew that, okay, if we get a draw here, we're through. So just F it. We're gonna kind of go for it in like the 85th minute, but we're not really gonna try too hard. And I don't know. I have a problem with that. I think it was impressive that they got a draw away to Oman, but it seemed like ever since that 1-0 victory against Oman in the first match day, they were just a little bit on cruise control. And I just don't trust this team, man. I don't trust this team. And I'm not scared of any team in round 3 whose top goal scorer is Joel Kojo with 7. I'm just not. So, and I really don't even think at home. I don't know how tough these guys are going to be. Like, they're really up against it now. And so is Oman, who beat Chinese Taipei 3-0 in Taiwan, and then drew Kyrgyzstan 1-1 at home. But when I'm talking about Oman, I think they have a long way to go to make up for the failure that was the Asian Cup, because they were terrible at that tournament. And I'm sorry, beating Chinese Taipei and winning this group, which they should have won. I mean, they barely won it. They won it by 2 points. That is not. Oman are not back. I've been talking a lot about progression or regression from different teams. Oman is a team that in the last round of World Cup qualifying already made it to round 3. Okay, so if they didn't make it this time, that's a failure. And they beat Japan in the last round of World Cup qualifying, got a tough draw against Australia, 2-2, I want to say as well. Like, they had some good moments there. A lot of very, very close 1-0 losses to Saudi Arabia, to Japan. So they have some big shoes to fill that they themselves made. And I just feel like this talent pool, when I look at them versus 4 years ago, I'm not sure if they've gotten better. If you guys disagree, let me know. But I don't think they've gotten better. And I think a lot of the teams around them have. I think Iraq are a lot better. I think Jordan are a new team. I think Uzbekistan are maybe the best they've ever been. Maybe Iraq are the best they've ever been. I know they won an Asian Cup before, but that was before my time, so I can't speak on the style of play between that Iraqi team and this current one. Was that 2007? No, that was 2004. I can't remember. Gosh, let's not go down this road right now. But that being said, of the pot 4 teams, you guys let me know what's the toughest one. Oman, Bahrain, or UAE? I'm still thinking it's Oman. Mainly because Bahrain are just fraudulent. Like, everybody wants China, everybody wants Bahrain, everybody wants Kuwait, everybody wants Qatar. Those are the teams that you want so far, of the thing. Maybe Palestine too. We'll get to them in the final group. UAE, yeah, they're pretty scary offensively, but that defense ain't great. At least Oman, being the desert turtles that they are, they're going to keep games close, okay? Which inherently keeps the probability of an upset high. I don't think Bahrain can do that. I don't know if the UAE can do that. I know they made it to the final playoff against Australia last time, but again, we look at the rest of these teams. Who's gotten better? Who's gotten worse? Who stayed the same? I think you got to say UAE stayed the same or gotten worse. And Chinese Taipei. Y'all, just please look up the first goal they conceded to Malaysia. I mean, it hurt my heart, honestly. I want the best for Chinese Taipei / Taiwan / whatever the hell you want to call these guys. But when you're conceding like that, there's nothing you can do but shake your head, quite frankly. Statistically, of the pot 4 teams, negative 15 goal differential. That's far from being the worst. Myanmar is is crying out for a negative 15 goal differential. But this squad just lacks quality everywhere. And there's nothing else to say. Moving on to Group E, we had Iran win this group, tied on points with Uzbekistan, but with a better goal differential. And I think we probably should start off with the Central Asian Classico, the 0-0 game in Tehran, where I felt like, for the most part, Iran were the better side. I felt like they had more of the better chances. I think outside of Uranov's one shot in like the 35th minute or something like that, it was pretty much a well-controlled game from Iran. And then I don't know what happened in the 75th minute, but Uzbekistan just decided to start playing offense, and they were really putting the Iranians under pressure. Nasrallah has a shot that goes over the post. I can't remember who puts a ball perfectly across goal, and there's just nobody from Uzbekistan to tap it home. I thought Feyzalayev looked lively when he came on. It was a good game for being a 0-0, but I think both sides, unfortunately, were more okay with the draw than I was hoping for. You know, I was hoping for what we saw in Saudi Arabia, Jordan, where these teams were like, no, I hate you, and I'm going to embarrass you in front of your wife and girlfriend and kids. That's what the Jordanians did in Saudi Arabia, and I didn't really see that same intensity from the Uzbeks until the 75th minute, like I said, and then I think they just outclassed Iran near the end of the game. Was that Katanic's game plan? Probably. We know the guy can be pragmatic, right? That's not a hot take. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. And we saw this before. You know, I felt like Qatar in the Asian Cup as well. They kind of waited a long time to really start playing. Maybe they just needed a while to warm up. I don't know. I don't really know what it is with the Uzbeks, but they're through to round 3. And I'm going to say right now, anything short of the World Cup is a colossal failure for this Uzbek side. I mean, the White Wolves right now are so good. It would be a loss for world football to not be able to see these guys on the big stage. It really would. They handled Turkmenistan 3-1. It should have been more. I think Tashkent is going to be a very difficult place for people to play in round 3. I think that's one of the better home field advantages in Central Asia. And when you look at the squad, man, most of these guys are in really good form for the national team. Feyzalayev, Uranov, he's probably the most hot and cold guy of anybody. Erkinov, is he in form? No, but, you know, at least there's talent there. Nasrallah, Husanov, another strong window from him. The goalkeeping is always going to be an issue, but, you know, Masharipov, I'm looking right here, 5 assists in his last 7 games for Uzbekistan. Looks much more comfortable playing in that central position as opposed to being a striker. You know, Shomurodov's back. He just kind of completes this team. They have a 9, thank God, for the first time since before the Asian Cup. Things are really clicking for the Uzbeks right now. And I think they're a pot 2 team. I could be wrong about that. They might even be a pot 3. Nobody wants Uzbekistan. And I'm going to say right now, just generally speaking, the quality of the pot 2 and pot 3 teams in Asia this time around is beautiful, man. It's fantastic to see. This federation is truly 10 deep right now. It's 10. Can we get a like for how just good Asia is? I don't care who you support. Can we get a like on the video for the progress we're seeing in Asia? Because I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think the Uzbeks, you know, I think they're one of the spearheads of that. Wrapping up on Katanic, I touched on him earlier. He lost 3 of his opening 4 games with Uzbekistan. Since then, in the 32 games since, you guys guess how many games he's lost since then? He's lost 4. And those were Iran, USA, Qatar, and Costa Rica. Like, that ain't bad, man. That ain't bad, especially when you look at some of the teams that they've played. Like, Roberto Mancini's looking at this record, and he's like, I wish I could be 75% of that right now, quite frankly. I think Katanac, he's a frustrating coach because of how defensive he can be and how stubborn he can be. But when you look at the records, when you look at some of the individual matches, I mean, you got to say the guy's doing a great job. Now, talking about Iran for a second, this was not their best window. And maybe I'm straight hating, but you can nominate Iran for, like, one of the biggest losers because you let Hong Kong score 2 goals against you. You end up beating them 4-2. Fantastic. But 2 of the goals that you got were penalties. And you couldn't beat Uzbekistan at home. And I know the Uzbeks are good, but I felt like that would have been a big momentum boost for Iran going into round 3, saying like, okay, we're still daddy in Central Asia. Okay, we're still a top 3 team in Asia. Where I think as of now, oh man, on form, like historically they are for sure, but on form right now, I still think they are top 3. But just watch out. This Iranian side, there's some things I'm seeing that I don't like. I don't like Azmoun. I thought was okay in this window. I thought Taremi was the much better of the players. He came the closest to scoring against Uzbekistan. He's got a nice curler off an Azmoun pass. I'll give him credit for that. That goes off the post. But I don't know, man. I don't know. The center backs here, they always worry me. They always worry me. It's a difficult window because you took 3 points and again you won the group. It's hard to call that an L, but I think for the expectations of Iran, I think many Iranians will feel a little disappointed by how this played out. Talking about disappointment, we can talk about Turkmenistan. I cannot believe they did not beat Hong Kong in Ashgabat. That is a massive L for Turkmenistan. Like, you have to be able to beat the Cantonese there. And the fact that it was a 0-0 draw, just disappointing. Disappointed to me. And I thought they got mollywopped by Uzbekistan. Now, Hong Kong, you know what? They put up a real fight. I think I was a little disrespectful in my prediction towards Hong Kong. And they didn't completely prove me wrong, but they proved that they really do have that dog in them. They really do have the fighter DNA. And the fact that they were, again, able to go to Ashgabat and not lose, I don't want to underestimate that. Like, they didn't lose to Turkmenistan in 2 games. They drew both legs. Now, who's that more embarrassing for? You guys be the judge in the comments. But I think Hong Kong, they're in a funky place, right? They're not going to be going down to the Asian Cup qualifiers. I think they have to qualify. And I think they're probably like the 5th, maybe best team that's going down to that phase of qualifying. And I was looking at some of the players, man. Hong Kong could be cooking. They could be cooking up something. Check out this attack, okay? I was looking at some of their players, some of the guys that they've been playing recently, some of the guys that scored against Iran, and who have the potential to be starters going forward. Mikhail Udebuluzar, the striker. I don't know if he's a dual nat. I don't believe he's a dual nat. 20 years old, has a couple caps for the national team. Hei Wei Ma, attacking midfielder, 20 years old. Anthony Pinto, right wing, 18 years old, scored against Iran. I think Hei Wei Ma also scored against Iran. Ho Chun Huang, left winger, 20 years old. That is 4 players. That's pretty much the entire attack. That's a U21. And maybe I'd even play them in the U21s as well, just to get these guys as many games as possible. Like, I'm not saying they have an Iksan Fandi on their hands here. I'm just saying that's a foundation. The fact that you have this many guys in the roster, they have a new manager since the Asian Cup, Wolfgang Lucier. I hope that he rolls with these guys in the Asian Cup qualifying games, because that's what I would like to see. That's what would get me excited about the Cantos, is saying that, like, damn, they're pulling a Costa Rica under Gustavo Alfaro. They're saying, okay, everybody who's old, I've seen enough. Everton, thank you. I don't ever want to see it for the national team again. We got to get these guys ready for the 2027 Asian Cup. That's what I would like to see. And I think that's a very big bright spot for Hong Kong that I don't think a lot of these other pot 4, or bottom finishing teams have. So, you know what? Congratulations to Hong Kong for, that glimmer of hope. Although that defense, man, can someone, I know they're a city state, so I don't want to be too critical, but can we get these guys some goddamn center backs? I mean, it is, and for the love of God, now I'm on one now. Can they stop giving away penalties? Hong Kong, and they're bad penalties too, man. It's like every game. It's like Kyrgyzstan in red cards, or Saudi Arabia and just disappointing and missing great chances. It's like every game they have to concede a pen. I'm stunned they didn't concede a pen against Turkmenistan. I really am, because if you eliminate these stupid mistakes, we're talking about some big results here against certain teams, whether that's in the Asian Cup or in qualifiers. But because they shoot themselves in the foot, they're a little undisciplined. Here they are finishing last with 2 points, when really, I feel like they could have gotten 4, maybe even 5 from this window. So, things to build on for the Cantos. Moving on to Group F, man. And I feel like I got this one on the money as well. Iraq steamrolling pretty much everybody, taking 18 points, finishing first. And then Indonesia. Congratulations to Indonesia, also debutants in round 3. The only Southeast Asian team to make it to round 3. Now, I'm going to pose the question, right? Because I know the I know the Indonesian and the Indian fan bases show out, but this is for the Indonesians watching. Does this mean that you guys are the best team in Southeast Asia? Because I said it earlier, it's either y'all or Thailand. Me personally, I'm not ready to say Indonesia's the best yet. Because I think if we look at how Thailand played in the Asian Cup, I was more impressed with Thailand's Asian Cup than I was with what I saw from Indonesia, who got spanked by Australia 4-0 in the knockouts, while Thailand lost a pretty competitive game against Uzbekistan 2-1. You know? And I think if Thailand was in this group instead of Indonesia, I also think that they would go through. So I think those two teams, what I would love to see is these guys playing like an AFF championship or something. I'm not sure if that's like the greatest decider of who's better, but that's what I want to see right now. Like the world needs more than ever an Indonesia-Thailand friendly on neutral ground. Do it in Melbourne. I don't give a damn where you play the game, but that's what Jack wants to see right now. Regardless of that, that's just a little side plot. Indonesia, man. This is nothing short of a dub. I was thinking about it when I was taking my dogs on a walk earlier today. If you would have told most non-Indonesian fans that Indonesia was going to win 3 games from this group, finish second with 10 points in advance, most people would say you're chatting shit. Most people would have said, no, they're not going to do that. Maybe they win like 1 game. Maybe they beat the Philippines twice, but they'll lose against Vietnam, right? And they'll get stomped by Iraq. Well, not only did they dog walk Vietnam twice, and beat the Philippines 2-0 decisively at home. I know they drew them in Manila, but in match day 6 they killed the Filipinos. It was bad. Not only did they do that, but I would also say they were the only team that was able to give Iraq any type of scare in this group, and it was only for 45 minutes. And it was only in the first half of match day 5, that game against Iraq at home. A half in which Rafael Struijk absolutely needed to pass the ball to his teammate who was wide open for a tap-in. And at that point, who knows what would have happened? Who knows what would have happened in that game? But he didn't. Iraq held on, kept it 0-0. Ali Jassim comes on the second half, and then Iraq completely blow Indonesia out in the second half. And I feel like I say that because it's showing the potential of this team. I think Indonesia are the hardest team to assess of any team in Asia, period. And I say that because it seems like every window these guys are getting new players in the squad. Guys like Tom Hay, who had a banger against the Philippines. Who's the other guy? Ragnar, the left winger. I think he can also play striker. It's like they're just always refreshing the ranks. And I don't know who these guys are. I don't watch them in their clubs in the Netherlands. So I don't know who they are, and then they just get thrown in the lineup, and I'm like, what is Shin Tae-yong cooking? And then it turns out he's cooking ratatouille. And I think Shin Tae-yong, bro, get that man an extension. Give that man an extension. I think he's doing an amazing job with Indonesia. Now, I still think in round 3, look, they're not making the World Cup. This team has some big weaknesses. I think the center backs outside of Hubner, big problem. I think the fact that they don't have a creative midfielder outside of Marcelino, if he plays as a cam, which I believe he should. I think he's better centrally than wide. I think they're a little too reliant on him. Struijk is not ready for the senior team. He's too raw. We saw it during the U23 Asian Cup. We've seen it for the senior team. We've seen it at the senior Asian Cup. He's just not quite ready. He's too raw. I think if Indonesia can fix one of those problems, so they go from 3 to 2 big issues, they still won't qualify. But they will be very competitive in matches. This team, they have a long way to go. But if you want to talk about teams that have had the biggest glow up from 2022 World Cup qualifying cycle to now, is there a bigger team? Is there a better example than Indonesia? I don't think so. I mean, these guys were irrelevant 2 years ago. They were a banter national team. Indonesians might not want to admit that. Y'all were a banter national team. And now you're in round 3 of World Cup qualifying? I mean, you got to give them props for that. Even if you despise this national team, you have to give them props for that. And I think Shin Tae-yong deserves a lot of credit. I think the Federation deserves a lot of credit for getting these players in there. Clearly, they're preparing them well. Big winners, Indonesia. I just don't think in round 3 things are going to go very well. Let's talk about Iraq. I mean, amazing work from Jesus Casas and co. This team is so good, dude. They're so good. They're so freaking good. Like, nobody wants the Iraqi smoke. Nobody wants Iraq. Nobody wants the Uzbeks. Nobody wants Jordan in round 3. Like, these teams are really, really going to give you a hard time. Like, they did struggle in the first half against Indonesia, but then the way that they survived, much like they survived against Japan at the Asian Cup, and then bounced back and won comfortably in the end. Ayman Hussein misses a penalty even. It should have been 3-0. It just shows you the strength of this team. It really, really does. And then against Vietnam, they win 3-1. Should have been more. Although credit to Vietnam. They put up a really, really good fight. And what a window for Ali Jassim. How is this guy? How are there not like 3 more of these Iraqi players playing in Europe? It's insane to me. I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. The only player that I'm kind of like still waiting for that run of really good games is Zidane Iqbal. He's 21 years old, so I'm not going to like crucify him or anything, but I do feel like he needs to be a bit better for the national team on a consistent basis. That's all. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I just want to see a little more consistency from him. Vietnam, are they winners? Are they winners? Oh, gosh, I've thought about this a lot, too. They beat the Philippines 3-2 in a shootout. What a game, by the way. What a game. And then the way that they fought against Iraq, I think that kind of makes them winners. A little bit. Like, I think the biggest difference I've seen under Sang-Sik Kim, their new manager, versus Trossier, is that offensively, this team still has some bite. This team still has some fight in them. And I think the players and the manager deserve credit for that. So I think Kim's first window in charge, walking away with 3 points, walking away with 4 goals scored in 2 games, that is a dub. Now, should Hanoi declare this as a national holiday and build him a statue? No, they shouldn't. But this is something positive that Vietnam have needed for a long time, and they finally gotten it. They have 2 wins in the last 12 games, guys. And both of those wins are against the Philippines. I mean, it's crazy what has happened to this national team. I know they've had some tough games, but it's simply unacceptable. But maybe Kim's got them on the right track. I don't really think so. But I would like to see a resurgence, much like what Park Hang-seo did when he came into this Vietnam side. I would like to see, the circle of life continue. And I think it is continuing, because if you look at the first game against the Philippines in match day 1 to the second game in match day 6, only 2 starters started both games for Vietnam. Van Lam, the goalkeeper, and Nguyen Linh. That's it. Everybody else was new. That's 9 new starters from match day 1 to match day 6. Some of that is injury, some of that is circumstance, some of that is experimentation. Either way, that's a lot of turnover. That's tough for any manager to deal with. And so I have a little sympathy for Kim. I think he needs time. I mean, he's walking into a disaster. We have to give the man time. But I think this is a minor, lowercase, 6-point font dub for Vietnam. You guys let me know if you disagree. And then the Philippines. Easily the highlight of their campaign was their draw at home against Indonesia. Outside of that, man, I don't know. I think there are some positive signs in the Vietnam game. I thought they looked marginally dangerous. I think when they start playing teams on the level of a Singapore, of a Hong Kong, of some of the other much weaker teams, Bangladesh, that are now trying to qualify for the next Asian Cup, I think you will see some good results. But I'm still not convinced these guys are going to qualify for the Asian Cup, because I still think there's some really good teams going down that are better than the Philippines. Like, I think Vietnam, obviously, are better than the Philippines. I think Afghanistan, if they get their players back, are better than the Philippines. We talk about Thailand. I think they're going to murder the Philippines if they get them in a group. Like, it's going to be tough for these guys. It really, really is. I don't have a ton of positive to say for my Filipino brothers and sisters out there. I hate to say it. Group G. Now, can we just get a like on the video for Jordan? Like, I don't care if you're not Jordanian, man. What these guys did this window is spectacular. Like, I thought they were going to beat the Tajiks, right? I thought they were going to beat the Tajiks. I didn't think they were going to kill them. And they killed them. Tajikistan, they had a couple chances because they're a good team. They're always going to generate chances. But beating them 3-0, bro, I did not see that coming. And you know what I also didn't see coming? A revenge dub against the Saudis in Saudi Arabia. And this is not a spoof win. They were the better team. Completely outplayed them. Most of the game were the better side in Saudi Arabia. And they end up leapfrogging them and winning the group. It's unbelievable. Like, I feel like I disrespected Jordan. And I feel like I've been flattering of them. Like, I said that they were going to qualify to round 3. And I still feel like I've disrespected them. That's how good they looked in this window. Like, I think I had the most fun watching Jordan of any team during this window. Like, if we're just looking at, like, the entertainment value in both games and the talent on display, Jordan number 1. Like, y'all, the attack is crazy. If South Korea has Shaq and Kobe, then Jordan has D. Wade, Bosh, and LeBron. Like, it's crazy how good Almardi, Altamari, and Yazan are. It's honestly disgusting. These guys, as individuals, are beasts. But when you put them together, they are, what is it, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. That's what they turn into. Like, and the crazy thing is, they probably should have scored more goals, too. There was a couple, like, really good wasted opportunities in this game. But it doesn't matter. If we're talking ranking attacks in Asia, I think you got to go Jordan top 3. I think anything lower than 3 is insanely disrespectful. They're probably 1 or 2. Like, I got to really think about it. I think maybe a fully healthy Japan has an argument there. But maybe Iran, I don't know, bro. I think I'm taking Jordan's attack over Iran. Like, in form for their national teams. Yes, I know Iran's got some ballers in Europe. Tademi Azmoun, Yakinbash. I don't want to disrespect those guys. But if we talk about how they perform for Iran versus Jordan, you got to give the Jordanians the edge. At least I think so. You let me know if you disagree in the comments. And I think when you take this attack, let's just call them top 3. When you take this top 3 attack, you combine them with 2 center backs who are extremely good. I know sometimes they play a back 3, and they're all quite good as a unit. But they have very, very strong center backs, and probably the most underrated goalkeeper in Asia, and Abdullaila. Do you have a team that's World Cup bound? I think I'm ready to jump on that. I really do. I think Jordan is a terrifying opponent for anybody. For anybody. Like, weirdly, I think Japan matches up really well against them. But, like, I don't think Iran, for example, I don't think Australia wants Jordan. I think those are scary times, scary hours. We're about to see. I can't wait for the draw, man. Tajikistan, oh, God, dude. This team needs a 9 so bad. So bad. I mean, the fact that they beat Pakistan 4-0 without a striker in a game that didn't matter is well and dandy, but these brothers cannot score. They cannot score, and it's killing them. It killed them in the last window against Saudi Arabia. They deserved more than 1 point from that window, and they didn't get it. And being in this group, which to me is hands down the toughest group. It's hands down the toughest group. Pakistan are just there, but the quality of the other 3 teams is ridiculous. You compare this to Group A or Group I, it is ridiculous. Or Group H, for the love of God. It is ridiculous. The Tajiks would have qualified in any of those other groups. I truly believe that. But when push came to shove against, the elite of Asia, they weren't able to get it done. And quite frankly, they shouldn't get it done because they're not an elite team in Asia. But it just sucks that we don't even have the opportunity to possibly see them in a World Cup. Now, I don't think they would have done anything in round 3 because they can't score goals. But I do feel for them a little bit. Maybe I'm the most sympathetic for Tajikistan of, like, the good teams going down or the teams that, like, fumbled at the end. Because, they're 1 player away. They are 1 player away. This just shows you the value of a good striker. They are irreplaceable. I'm going to say, you put Fandi on Tajikistan, I genuinely think they might be through to round 3, and Saudi Arabia might have been eliminated. Like, if y'all take away the 2 games against Pakistan, Tajikistan scored 2 goals in their 4 games against both Jordan and Saudi Arabia. It's not good enough. That is not good enough. They scored, what, 1 goal in the Asian Cup group stage? Maybe it was 2. Needed some last-minute heroics to beat Lebanon. Like, as pretty as the football is, it's useless. It's pointless. It's ineffective. And so I feel for them. But at the same time, like, what am I supposed to say? You got to put the ball in the back of the net, and these guys are allergic to that. Now, the Saudis, man, oh my gosh. These guys, they've been on my fraud watch for a while. They are certified fraud watch for at least the next 3 months, or at least the next 2 windows. Like, I need to see Saudi Arabia and Mancini beat a really good team. Because literally on his resume, the best win is beating Jordan 2-0 away. Hands down the best win. Hands down. I'm not going to say beating Oman 2-1. That doesn't qualify as a big win if you're Saudi Arabia at an Asian Cup on neutral ground. Does not qualify. And I got into it, didn't really get into it, but somebody was going at me a little bit on Twitter saying that, the Saudis, it's not Mancini's fault because of the talent pool. But you cannot say that this Saudi Arabian talent pool is terrible. Like, there's some serious ballers in this squad. The technical ability of some of their players is really high. Really, really high. You look at the quality of their club teams and Asian competitions. There's something there. So let's not bail at Mancini and act like he's managing Cambodia. He's not managing Cambodia. Saudi Arabia should be a top 4 team in Asia. And right now, on paper, I'm probably putting them 7 or 8. Like, they've really fallen down. And they're in trouble. I believe they're a pot 2 team. I think Qatar is also a pot 2 team. Everybody wants Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Probably everybody wants Qatar a little bit more. But you'll be feeling okay. Like, they're not scary. They're not scary. There's nothing to be afraid of with Saudi Arabia, and that shouldn't be the case. I think Mancini is doing this team a disservice. They were better under Hervé Renard. They were like oh damn, I don't know, like, well, we gotta go to Riyadh. I don't feel good about this. That's gone. The aura is gone. You can let Jordan go in there and body you like that? Nah, dude. Saudi Arabia, they're on the downward slope. And Pakistan, bro, 1 goal scored, 26 conceded. I could drag these guys. I could roast them. They had the Jordanians, the Saudis, and the Tajiks. Did anybody think that Pakistan was getting a draw here? 1 point would have been the second biggest achievement in Pakistani football history. What is the first achievement? I'm not sure. I bet they beat India one time, like 3-0 or something in the 60s. That's probably the biggest achievement. But no, I didn't expect anything from the Pakistanis here, and they're not going to qualify for the Asian Cup either. I tell you that right now. Group H, the group where I had the most incorrect predictions, the group that I probably watched the least, which makes sense because I have the least interest in this collection of teams. And I gotta say, with the UAE and Bahrain going through, like, both of those teams, neither of them are going to make the World Cup because they're simply not very good. Bahrain have pretty much one dangerous offensive player. The UAE have a few, but they're just so beatable. They're so vulnerable at the back. They just are not scary. I just talked about that with Saudi Arabia. Same thing could be said with UAE and Bahrain. Nobody is sweating if they draw these guys in round 3. UAE and Bahrain drew each other in the final match day. I thought the match sucked. Yemen, bro. How are you going to draw Nepal 2-2, brother? Like, that was one prediction I'm shocked that I got wrong because I really felt like the Yemeni were going to pull it through, and they didn't. Even though they spanked them 4-0 in Kathmandu, then they draw 2-2. Like, that was kind of whack. Bahrain drawing Yemen in match day, like, stop. And then UAE beat Nepal 4-0. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Nobody cares, dude. Stop talking about Paolo Bento and how good he was with Korea. He, like Mancini, I need to see something. What's the result? And you know what? The difference between Mancini and Bento is Mancini's been playing good teams. Okay, so at least he's going through the fire. Bento been on a bicycle with training wheels. What is his best match? Iran at the Asian Cup, and they got destroyed. They got annihilated. That's his hardest game. Like, man, I don't think he's doing a very good job either. Like, uh, you got to be better. The Emiratis have to be looking at this team and be like, no, we're not feeling good about the next round. And lastly, final group we're going to talk about, Australia and Palestine going through. We'll talk about Palestine first. They're also debutants, the final debutant in round 3. We had 3 of them, Kyrgyzstan, Indonesia, and Palestine. Now, Palestine as a national team, they're certainly trending up, right? First ever knockouts at the Asian Cup. Now they're through to round 3 for the first time. But these guys, get a little hater here, did the bare freaking minimum in this, not only in this window, but in this group, right? You draw Lebanon 0-0. Congratulations. I don't care. And then you get annihilated 5-0 by Australia, which is Palestine's worst loss in a long time. And that's this window. If we zoom out and look at the entire phase as a whole, hear me out. I know people are upset, and they think I'm a far-right activist. I'm not, I assure you. If we look at what Palestine did, you had 2 wins against Bangladesh, you had 2 draws against Lebanon, and you had 2 losses against Australia. And you finished with 8 points. I know they're through to round 3, but this is a C+ campaign from Palestine. Nothing more. I cannot give them a B. I cannot give them an A. If you just want to go absolutist and say they're through to round 3 is success, that's fine by me. But 2 back-to-back draws against Lebanon, I want to say both of them were 0-0. Oh, man. And then just getting smacked by Australia like that. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't have a lot of confidence for these guys in round 3. We'll see what they can do, but I am very bearish on Palestine right now. Australia, on the other hand, I already said at the very beginning of the video, they had the second most goals scored of any team, 22 in round 2, which maybe some people will say that's expected, but I think the fact that they scored 5 goals in a game against Lebanon and then a game against Palestine, I think that's kind of a dub for the Australians because, they're not always known for running up the score, and furthermore, Palestine and Lebanon are defensive teams who are defensively usually at least decent. And so for Australia to put up 5 in 2 games there, that's pretty nice. Of course, in classic Australian fashion, they somehow beat Bangladesh by 2 and then annihilate Palestine. So riddle me that. Some guys I want to highlight in this window, Martin Boyle was a beast. A beast against Palestine. 2 goals, 1 assist. I feel like I need to say that Australia's attack looked a lot better. It looked a lot better. Like, I wonder if he's the guy now. Like, is Mitchell Duke, is that book just closed forever? I think it might be. I think Yengi is just a more technical player. And I think you put him in between Matthew Leckie and Martin Boyle with Keanu Bacchus and Jackson Irvine behind them. Maybe you find a way to throw Craig Goodwin in there. Hey, I mean, that's World Cup, 100%. Not that the Australians are even under threat, but like that's a team that might lose 1 game in round 3. I genuinely mean that. I don't even know the last time Palestine conceded 5. That was crazy. And Australia got a goal from Irakunda, their 18-year-old phenom, who I've been hearing a lot about. I don't know much about him, but he's very hyped up, and he scored the penalty. It was the 5th goal, so we'll have to wait and see. Maybe he'll get more minutes. Maybe Graham Arnold will have another howler and just play the old guys again in round 3. I have no idea. We're just going to have to wait and see. But I think it was a good window from the Aussies. I think it was a very good... I know they got 2 penalties, but I think it was a pretty good look behind the curtain of what they could be. And maybe what they could have been if Matthew Leckie didn't miss the Asian Cup. But they didn't even have Atkinson in that game either, so... Yeah, the Australians, man, they just out there on their own continent, just doing their own thing, petting wombats and riding saltwater crocodiles and finishing top of the group with 22 goals. That's just what the Australians do. That's what they did. Need I say more? Lebanon, oh my God, this team sucks. This team is so bad. Oh my, like the fall is crazy from the last round of World Cup qualifying, where there was a couple moments, games against Iran, games against Korea at home, where Lebanon, man, like they were so close to getting draws, so close to getting wins. And now you look at them And genuinely, the last 10 games I've seen from Lebanon have all been abysmal. They are offensively inept. They are still reliant on Matuk, who got a hat trick against Bangladesh, to do anything. It's just, what is the future for the country? What is the future for the national team? I do not know. I do not know. I just, like, even Asian Cup qualifying, I do think it's going to be a little difficult. I expect them to qualify. If they don't qualify, oh my God. 15-minute Lebanon hate video coming on the way if that doesn't happen. But they're so boring. They're so freaking boring. 5 goals scored in this group stage, and 4 of those are in the final match day against Bangladesh, albeit away. But still, brother, like, nah, this team is dead wood. And Bangladesh, they are, what is worse than dead wood? They're like cremated timber or something. 1 goal scored, 20 allowed. I don't know who's good on this team. I was watching the Lebanon game and I was honestly aghast at how bad they looked. Like, maybe there's a modicum of talent and tech in their wingers, and I thought their goalkeeper was okay, and I say that loosely, but it's one of the worst midfields I've ever seen and one of the worst center back pairings I've ever seen. Like, this team is just terrible. I don't think they'll qualify for the Asian Cup. I mean, this watch the highlights against the Lebanon game. In the second minute, one of their players, Shakil Hussein, literally punches a Lebanese player and just gives up a pen for no reason at all. Like, I was watching it, and I was like, there's no way this is actually how the game went down. That's actually how the game went down. It went to VAR, and a penalty was given. I mean, when you're Bangladesh, you cannot be doing that, dude. You just cannot. And that's what happened, and I have nothing else to say about these guys. I guess on a positive note, they only conceded 20, which is 4th worst of all the eligible teams, so they could have been worse in that department. But yeah, Bangladesh, massive L, not as big an L as Lebanon, but a massive L for Bangladesh. And I'm going to end the video there, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you made it to the end, you're a champ. Smash the like button, hit subscribe if you like videos covering Asian football. Again, I'm going to be doing a reaction as soon as the round 3 draw happens. I'm super excited about that. Like, Asian football overall is just in a really good place, and I think this round 3 could maybe be the best ever. Like, the amount of talent, the amount of drama, the amount of skill, the managerial quality on display here is something that maybe Asia's never seen. At least not in my lifetime, while I've been, a pretty diehard follower of Asian football. But anything that happened pre-1996, bro, I don't know what happened. So you guys have to let me know in the comments. Oh, last thing, if you want to join the Discord, the link is in the description of this video. And I think it'd be cool if you guys did, because I feel like we don't have too many Asian footy fans in there. It's like me and a couple others. So I think we need some more Asian representation. So jump in there. We have an entire channel on the Discord just called like Asia or AFC Asia, something like that. You can talk everything Asian ball, club football, national teams, transfers, all that stuff with me and everybody else in the Dead Ball TV community. It's a great way to ask me questions because you can tag me, whenever there's a transfer. Or you can also follow me on Twitter at the Jackson. I'll put my link down below in the description if you want to see what, my thoughts are about everything footy, rap music, cuisine, traveling, dating in the modern world, all that good stuff. And if you guys are listening on streaming platforms, because I will release this on Spotify and Apple Music, if you can give the pod a 5-star rating, that would be much appreciated. I appreciate you guys for watching or listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.